All right, guys, welcome in. We are doing something a little different this week. This year, one of my goals with these videos is to start bringing on some more guests. So, our first guest of the year will be new coach, Schwall. Topic today, since he just recently took his level 1, we're going to pick his brain a little bit about his experience, some of the things he's already started applying, not just as a coach, but just as a CrossFit athlete as well. And I know I've had several conversations with people that are curious about the level 1, potentially you think about taking it at some point. Hopefully we can answer some questions for you today. So, thank you for joining me. Thank you for doing this.
No problem. I'm excited.
Yeah. Fresh in your mind. So I wanted to get opinions, ideas, impressions of your experience right out of the gate. For people that aren't aware, what is the CrossFit Level 1 certificate course?
So the CrossFit Level 1 certificate course is basically giving you the downright foundations of why CrossFit was created, what the basis CrossFit was created on, and the reasons and justifications for the reason that they do the certain movements, programming, and I guess skill levels that they're asking for. So it's all for where was CrossFit created and why was it created, how do we apply the CrossFit methodology, and how does it improve people's life, and why do we need to live by it? So that is what I would like. It's giving you the baseline of understanding when you come in and you see the whiteboard, when you come in and you're getting cues, why is all that happening? And that's what the level 1 is giving, in my opinion.
And that's big because it's certainly a lot of instruction. It's talking about how to do certain movements. This is the squat, this is the press, that kind of thing. But the why is...
Yes, it's justifying.
Keeps coming back, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. So what initially, I guess, made you want to do it?
All right.
When it first jumped into your mind.
Yeah. When I first started CrossFit, I said I want to be good at almost every movement in CrossFit. And to be good at every movement in CrossFit, you need technique. You need to understand why. You need to understand the movement. You need to understand the pattern and why we're doing things. Do you remember when I first joined CrossFit? Balls to the wall immediately. I come out and I'm doing a WOD. And you guys are like, hey, maybe you should pace and think about this. Mm-hmm. And then, I slowly learned that. And then I was snatching. But, my snatch form, I needed arm or shoulders in front of the bar a little bit and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. Oh, that improved. So at the end of the day, after you guys are giving me all these insights and giving me all these cues, and hey, maybe you should pace, stuff like that, level 1 would give me those answers. It allows me to dive in deeper, right? Because you guys are there for class. Unless I took a one-on-one session, this allowed me to really understand why are we programmed the way we are? Why do you give me a stimulus? Why do you challenge me to go faster or slow down and improve form? So that is what got me to do the level 1, is because I want to know why. Why were we doing these things? And when you gave me a cue, why did it improve it? And then way back in my mind, CrossFit Level 1 certificate is good for 5 years. That, maybe there's a possibility I might be able to coach somewhere because it's 5 years. So.
Yeah. Well, that gamble worked.
Yeah, that gamble did work. Got lucky. Yeah.
That's really cool. I mean, it's maybe a little bit to do with engineering brain, right? I want to see what makes things tick. Why are we doing it? Why does that work? Why doesn't that work? That's really cool. Yeah, I think that's a big part of why anyone would take it is just a desire for more information. Can I learn a little more about this thing? So what else do they cover in the course? Topics, if you give a
So it was 2 days long. Yeah, it covered so much and it was fantastic. First one was where and how CrossFit was created. Who are the originals? Where did it all stem from? Then they went on. This is the biggest one for me. And this is what defining CrossFit. Or not defining CrossFit, defining fitness. What is fitness? What is fitness level? So they talked about that. They also talked about functional movements and why they chose those functional movements and what is important about focusing on functional movements. The 10, dynamics of what defines CrossFit, which is agility, mobility, strength, all those explaining what was created.
10 domains.
The 10 domains, correct. Why do they program the way they program? why is the programming the way that the programming is? Why does it sometimes seem like it's a lottery ball? And then the biggest one, which I really liked, which is the hardest for us to discuss in the gym, nutrition. Yeah. They touched on nutrition. It was really awesome. And then, they went on for coaching cues and tips. But I'd say the one thing they focused the most on, which we've talked about too, you hold a PVC pipe for a long time because they have you walk through the basic functional movements down to the T. Mm-hmm. Every step of that functional movement and what you should be doing. So those are the things. So you got why CrossFit was created, how do you define CrossFit/fitness, why do we do a program we do, how nutrition is the basis, and then basically how do you apply the knowledge they just taught you in programming and being a coach.
Okay, yeah. So I guess talk a little more about that. You talked about learning movements. So how was that happening actually in the class? Like what were they doing?
So the squat, literally I think I did 50 air squats, very slow, and I got nitpicked a ton. They would just literally break down. They call it squat therapy. Even if you knew how to squat, they would literally have you walk through each moment of the squat, literally start with hips back, and they would tell you to stop. And then they'd be like, I think you can go a little farther back on those hips, everything like that. The knees out. Same thing with the snatch. They went through each movement, which this is what I like about our gym, and I know you guys, after taking level 1, you've incorporated what you learned in level 1. We do all that stuff in the specific warm-ups. We go through.
Right.
We did the snatch deadlift. They nitpicked my snatch deadlift. Then they nitpicked my shrug. So that was during those specific movements. They would demonstrate them again, like what you see in the front of the class. They literally would show you the movement, and then go through every possible fault someone could do, every possible cue you might need to give, and reasonings of why those faults affect the lift in a negative way. Right. So that's what I would say. They broke down even as simple as a squat into 3 different pieces, and then talked about it.
Okay. Was there a movement in particular that you learned that you thought going into it you were better than it felt as you're getting corrected repeatedly?
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's a good question. I didn't know you were going to ask it. Yeah, the snatch. On the snatch shrug, I hang on my toes. In other words, I hang high on my toes for basically way too long. So I'm shrugging and I'm on my toes, and they're like, keep those heels down. All your power comes from your heels. So they challenged me to go through the movement, even with the clean and the snatch, and try to keep my heels on the ground as long as possible. And then after I shrug, get them back down on there because that's your stable ground. So what they were teaching me, what I found out is that I am very toe active in my clean and snatch. When a lot of your power is driven through your heels. So if I go on my toes too early, I'm losing a little bit of that power. So that was one thing I did not know, but being nitpicked, something I learned. Yes.
That's really interesting, and it makes me think of something else too. It makes me think of why I would encourage people to drop in at other gyms when you're on vacation or wherever you're going, because although in level 1 you're getting cream of the crop, the best coaches in the world are teaching how to do some of this stuff. Some of the value in it is just that you are hearing something said a different way from a different person. So where you just said there about keeping your heels on the ground, get them off the ground, but then get them right back to the ground, is a slight twist on how I've really ever thought about that. But sometimes that's what you need to hear, right? So,
I would back that and say yes, drop into as many gyms as you can, because experience of full range. A cue works when a cue works. There's no perfect cue. So I agree with that.
Yeah.
That's why Elena and we drop into so many gyms and you experience it all. So I agree with you.
I was going to pick a little at the nutrition. So I know that they show you a pyramid, right? And at the bottom of that pyramid is nutrition, right?
Yeah, yes, and I completely agree with it. I already, because I've been reading books before I went to level 1, I've been bought into it, but the foundation to your level of fitness and how well you're going to perform, period, even if it's not CrossFit, just life, is nutrition. If your nutrition is off balance, if your nutrition isn't good, everything above that is going to suffer from that inadequacy. So yes, your true foundation is having a good nutrition. And I don't know if there's a question coming, but after swallowing the blue pill again, I've taken the level 1. I've enhanced my nutrition even more, and I've already seen the gains in my workouts.
That was exactly what I was going to ask. From what you learned there, did that lead to any changes in your own nutrition?
It did.
If you don't mind, what were at least one or two things that you've done?
To be completely honest with you, 1 or 2 things I've done is, we've talked about it, and I'm not afraid to admit it, adding more dry days to my life. Having less alcohol in my life.
Yeah.
In the sense of just, and when I say dry day, I mean like 1 beer makes it a wet day. So it's not like, dry days mean not getting wasted or anything like that. But man, having those dry days, I just already feel it. Like the one thing they say in level 1, take one thing out of your diet that's already there for an entire month. See how you feel, then reintroduce it and see how you feel.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to reintroduce it because I have already seen the changes. I have more longevity, more energy, not sluggish.
That's awesome.
Yes. So and then I started specifically following more of the CrossFit diet. I think I have it memorized. Meat and veggies, seeds and nuts, some fruit, little starch, no sugar.
Correct.
I've specifically introduced that, and again, it's just I've lost body fat percentage, and life is good. But
yeah. And before we move on from that, the no sugar comment always winds people up a little bit. Do you know exactly what they mean by that? I don't know if they went over that too much.
So the only thing I would say is, no sugar when I would say to processed or in items, but yes, like fruits have sugars, but those fruits are their sugar is surrounded by fiber, or, like that. So there's sugars in fruits, but those are natural, reoccurring sugars that are okay for you. That's what I got out of it.
Yeah, 100%. It's no added sugars is really what it should be. The whole shtick with that is like it's in that quote of fitness in 100 words. Yeah. So it ends up being really clean when you can say it's exactly 100 words. Literally what they mean is no added sugar. So fruit is all fine because that sugar exists naturally in it, whereas candy bars, you're adding sugar to things that don't naturally have it. Yeah.
Yes.
But I want to mention that because people get a little wound up with that one.
The one thing, if I was thinking, because nutrition is hard to talk about, the guy who even spoke to me, or the level 2 who's becoming a level 3, was talking about, he goes, don't get me wrong, I make mistakes. He's like, I'm not a crazy person. If I'm at my child's birthday party and there's a cake, I'm eating that cake. He's just like, I decide when I'm going to eat that cake. I limit when I'm going to eat that cake, but it's not like absolutely no sugar. He's like, we're still humans, we still have kids, stuff like that. So that I like, where he wasn't, this is what you need to do. He's realistic about it. He's like, everyone has their paths. Just try to get closer to that sentence that we said of no sugar.
Yeah. I remember in my level 1 when we broke out and they asked if you're going to go off of your diet, what's the food that you're going to eat? I don't know if they did that for you. And I happened to be one of the first people to answer in the group, and I was like, Cheez-Its. Every single person after me said something to the tune of watermelon, pineapple, and I was like, oh my God. I'm the only one that was like I want to eat
garbage food,
fake cheese, cracker, garbage. And, I'm assuming they're all putting on airs to look good in front of people. But, yeah, that was a kind of a strange thing in nutrition.
But, I mean, he even knew. He goes, this is a hard subject. I'm going to give it to you guys. I'm going to be straight. I'm going to tell you what it is, but everything in small doses. You don't need to jump right on it. Just, do a little thing at a time. One less Coke a day. One more glass of water a day. There isn't like live, die, or what is it called? Live hard or die, something like that. But just go ahead, take your time.
Right.
Slowly easy to do it.
It's not so cut and dry. It's not black and white.
So they weren't campaigning or preaching in my face. They were just like, this is the thought, but we know that humans are humans and we're real. Okay.
What about exercise, fitness, workouts? Have you changed anything from what you learned there? If there's a ton, let's pick 1 or 2.
No, I just say this. I'm literally coaching myself now during a WOD.
Okay.
I go into a squat and I feel my toes touch the ground. I'm like, toes up, Chris, toes up, on your heels. Like I literally, what I would say to another person, believe me, if I could say it now, I'm saying the exact same stuff to myself. Mm-hmm. So that's probably the difference, is when I'm working out now, I'm like, knees travel over the toes, get to full depth, open your hips all the way. And I'm like, I don't think I did that. So that's probably what changed the most from level 1 is that every flaw they told me, I'm constantly evaluating myself during a workout.
Okay, gotcha. How about kind of bigger picture, working out in general, exercise in general for foreseeable future or even really long term? Has that changed your outlook on it or the way that you're
I'm going to keep doing it. Okay. I'm going to keep doing it. Yeah.
So no change.
Yeah, no change. I mean, like all that change is maybe I'm going to focus a little bit on some other stuff. And, one thing I specifically learned, there's nothing wrong with scaling. Sometimes scaling will actually improve your fitness more than RX.
100%, right?
Because it's all about the power equation, the power output, that CF level 1, which by the way, it's free online to download and you can read the entire book by yourself on how they define fitness, and it's all about power output, not about RX output. So that is one thing I'll say has changed in my mind. I do not worry too much whether I'm going to RX or scale. I think about power output that I'm going to do in the workout.
Good. Because there's some stigma around scaling, and one of the things that breaks my heart all the time that we hear in here is, but I scaled.
Yep.
It doesn't matter, right? It's just
at class.
Maybe that was a better decision on it. Like maybe you made yourself fitter by scaling, and that's what gets missed sometimes.
Because you can RX and you're taking a ton of breaks and you're actually not sweating near the end, but you scaled and you worked your butt off and you're scaling like crazy. Even the level 3 that was there, Coach Jen, by the way, amazing woman. She specifically cared about you hitting the stimulus. She didn't care about X. She goes, I want you to be able to get 5 rounds.
Right.
If you don't get 5 rounds, we're changing the workout for you. Because she knows that stimulus equals your power output.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's what
equals your fitness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
So was there anything you learned that was surprising? You didn't expect?
Yeah. So I already talked about that. How CrossFit defines fitness. Which I love, the book's a little sassy. If you Google what is fitness, I think the statement is able to reproduce or able, you're right, okay, so that doesn't really make sense. And then if you look any further, nobody gives a statement, but CrossFit has defined a way in which they define fitness, and not going too deep into it, but basically when you do a workout, you produce a certain amount of power. And if you do short-term, long workouts, great power is work over distance divided by time. That's why we always have the clock going. And you can make a lot of data points. The point is, you become more fit if you can do that same work over a distance in a shorter amount of time because your power output is increased.
Yeah.
So like Karen or Fran, if you can do those at the same weights but faster, I would say that your fitness has improved.
Yeah.
And I like data. I like numbers. I like a way to measure it, not this is our fitness.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the way I've always explained it is your fitness is your ability to do things. And the list of things that you can do, the longer it is, the greater your fitness is. Yeah. And that's putting it in layman's terms, they certainly go into tons of detail.
They go into a lot of detail, which I really like, by the way.
Yeah. But essentially, that's what it is. Like, what can you do, what can't you do? And those are the ways we're measuring your fitness.
Yeah.
Okay.
And which links back to functional movements. Being able to move heavy loads over large distances in a short time.
Right.
Which in turn loads, distance, time, power output.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that I was like, oh, I can measure my fitness. I loved it.
I've always joked. I think that CrossFit lends itself, especially when you get into the nuts and bolts like this, it lends itself to people that have an analytical approach, people that have more, they want evidence, they want a scientific approach, because it's truly built on science, whereas fitness prior to it was just sort of defined kind of ambiguously, and now it's very specific in CrossFit.
And I would say, so relative to that statement, I like it a lot. A lot of people worry about what the scale says, and that's their measurement point, right?
Yep.
But let's ignore the scale. Let's see how your power improvement changed. Did you just drop your Fran time by 30 seconds, but the scale stay the same? Whatever. Maybe you're growing muscle. Maybe you include your endurance. Like that, you have already improved your longevity. Scales may not have moved, but that's not really what's defining what you can do as a person. It's your power output that can, not how much you weigh.
Yeah.
Is one thing. So that's why so a lot of people use that data point on a scale as their measurement device. And if you read the level 1 and how they define fitness, you might change your scale of how you measure your fitness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and hopefully that's the case, because that can be a trap sometimes, falling into that.
Well, because, yeah, you can be gaining muscle while losing weight. The scale doesn't move anywhere, but you're becoming more fit.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. So, what was your favorite part? Favorite part of the whole weekend?
My favorite part, which I don't know if anyone watches this, they're probably going to laugh, being nitpicked by a serious level 3 CrossFit affiliate athlete. Like, she has gone to the games. She has done workouts to try to determine what they use for the games. And if you go on CrossFit.com to look up movements, Coach Jen is probably going to be one of the people in that video. And she was there
like
nitpicking. Yes, and she was nitpicking my movement. So, like, say my movement is 99% great, she still find a small thing that I can improve on. That was my favorite part of the week. Obviously, it's not great to constantly nitpick, but because I want perfection in a lift, because perfection in technique equals increased, performance, aka you can get a PR from just increasing your technique and not muscle. I loved it.
Which again goes right back to power output and stimulus, right? Because if more of your focus is on the technique, that's going to serve as a more effective way to accelerate your fitness than putting 10 more pounds on that bar where your technique starts to fall off, you learn bad habits, you lower the power output.
And so if I can just say one more thing about what they teach, that right there, and they'll talk about it in the CrossFit Level 1 in the booklet, is that teeter-totter between technique and intensity. I think if more people read about that, they would understand why sometimes the coach is like, hey, let's go a little harder today, but keep the weight where it is. Or let's go lower in weight, but focus on technique. And that's why I think the Level 1 teaches all these things. And, like, I swear to God, after I took the Level 1 and I came to class, and I was like, I get it. I know what you guys are doing now. Like, I get the trick. I get it. I know why you're doing this. Like, and that's what I really liked about it.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. I think it's a fantastic place to end. If people have questions about the Level 1, okay to ask you.
I'm all for talking about it. Yes.
Cool. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
See you, brother.